Welcome to video clip 1.6, in which we discuss levels of process models. When we discuss business processes, it's not the case that we always look at the level of activities and ordering of activities and who is responsible for which activities and which decisions. Since organizations are complex buildings, we need to have layers or different levels in which we discuss business processes. This slide shows these layers that we like to differentiate or that we like to discuss in this course. And on the upper level we have the organizational business processes. These are coarse-grained business processes or coarse-grained entities that cover the main activities of an organization. These organizational business processes determine the operational business processes on the next level. The operational business processes actually cover the activities, the process activities, and their logical ordering from a business perspective, not from a technical perspective. So the process models that we have been looking at so far on the level of operational business processes, we look at activities, their ordering, then also the responsibilities, which decisions occur, and so forth. On the implementation level, we have implemented business processes. And in the implemented business processes, we add execution information, technical execution information to operational business processes. Also, the process structure might be more elaborate, might be different than the structure of the operational business processes. So let's start with the highest level, with the organizational business processes. They are often not defined on the model level, on the level of BPMN, on the level of activities, gateways, decisions, and so forth, but they are defined in a textual form, often using a table structure. So for each organizational business process, we look at what are the inputs, what are the outputs of the process, which persons are responsible or which roles are responsible for the process, which supplier or customer relationships exist with other organizational business processes. And we can say that each organization has about a dozen organization business processes. On the right-hand side, we see an example of this tabular structure of an organizational business process. Here we have the process name, which is the product development process. We see a person who is responsible for this process. We see the inputs and outputs in terms of what are the main artifacts produced during that process. We look at the supplier process, so processes that produce something that the organizational business process expects or uses as input. The organizational business process also produces results, process results, and these can then be fed into other organizational business processes. And we have here also one customer process, which is the order management process. So this takes a look at one particular organizational business process, and this is realized by many of operational business processes, which then are realized by implemented processes. All right, so here the focus is on one organizational business process, and we can draw a map of all organizational business processes with their customer-supplier relationships, and then we end up with a process landscape. And this slide shows you a process landscape. In the previous slide, we had this product development process, and the organizational process is on this slide represented by this symbol, and there are other, as you see, there are other organizational business processes. That is the innovation process, product planning process, the marketing process, order management process, the after-sales process. And we also see stakeholders that are not really organizational business processes, but this process landscape shows that the stakeholders have market challenges, and the market challenges are the output of the stakeholders. They produce the market challenges, and these market challenges are used as input for the innovation process. The innovation produces a prototype or prototypes, and the prototypes are input to the product development process, and so forth. So these types of process landscapes provide you a high-level view of the organizational processes of your company, of your organization, and how they relate to each other. And this is also from the BPM book, and thereby it's adapted from a very nice book by Schmelz and Sesselmann that appeared in 2010. All right, on the next level, the operational business processes. This is the level we will be dealing mostly with. Here, process models are defined, BPMN process models are defined that focus on business aspects rather than technical implementation aspects. So here we see activities and the logical ordering, as we've seen before. We see organizational aspects. So far we have only seen organizational aspects related to the organization that is responsible. Here we have the reseller, and also we had the insurance company and the customer and so forth, but we will go a bit more detail into these organizational aspects that are also covered in the operational business processes. We see decision points, responsibility, and also we look at the main data objects involved. So this level also talks about data object that is created, data objects that are created during process execution, and data objects that are, let's say, read and written during process execution. And operational business processes, here we use graphical process modeling languages, for instance, the BPMN. On the implementation level, we see implemented business processes. Business processes can be implemented in very many different ways. Earlier this week, I was discussing business process management systems that are generic software systems that take process specification as process models, enriched with execution information, and these systems make sure that the process instances are executed as defined by the process model using process orchestration techniques. But that's not the only way we can implement business processes. We can implement business processes also using traditional techniques with traditional software system with some kind of message passing middleware underneath. We can use ERP system to implement business processes, although the tailoring of these systems might be a bit more complex, might require a bit more coding than when we use BPMS. In any case, the implemented business processes contain detailed information about the implementation. So software systems and services are used to implement the process activities. Also details regarding the organizational aspects of the process implementation, including responsibilities and access rights of process participants, needs to be discussed. So it's not only the software, the technical implementation, but also the implementation in the organization regarding responsibilities and process participants, people who are responsible for certain activities or for certain parts of the process. And also implemented processes contain details or additional details relative to operational business processes, but these processes can also differ in structure from them. So we might have an IT architecture that prevents us from implementing the business process the same way as the operational business process is specified. So we need to add additional activities. We might also, in some cases, to delete activities, we might to reorder activities. So the step from the operational business process to the implemented business process is again a creative act, is an implementation act, and this is not an automatic act that we can do by pressing a button. And here on the lower part we see an excerpt of a process specification using the activity open source BPMN engine which we use in class and which we also use in our projects. All right, that concludes video clip 1.6, in which we discussed levels of business processes. We discussed first the top level of business process, that is organizational business processes. We can organize organizational business processes using process landscapes. which detail the organizational business processes of the company and also the dependency, so in terms of input-output on the high level of organizational business processes. We then talked about operational business processes, mostly BPMN processes, which are the center of our attention in this course. And we briefly discussed implemented business processes, so ways how operational business processes can be implemented using BPMS or using other types of implementations.